Welcome everyone to the 19th episode of our Sustainable Together and Sustainability Working Group webinar session from INCOSI. Today our presenter is Amar Nayak from India, and you are in the, I think it's a mixed university, sorry if I'm not pronouncing this properly. You're going to present on regenerative philosophy, practice and science, and we are looking forward to your talk. Amar, if you could please introduce yourself for all of us again, because you've done extensive work over the last 10 or 20 years nearly, I think, in this domain. So I hand it over to you.
Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. It's been wonderful to be with all of you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share the findings of our study so far. I'm going to come with the, let me share the slides for you to have a look. Is this...
Yes, works.
Yes. So this is the research center that we have been working on. This is called the All Interacting Evolving System Science. So it's a little specialized version of systems science called the All Interacting Evolving System Science. Today we, as already shared, the theme of the discussion is philosophy, practice, and performance of regenerative science using AIESS. Am I audible enough? Is it clear?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. I understand that all of you have spent decades in the field of system science, so you're quite aware of the challenges, the issues, and the prospects of applying this science to problem solving. One of the points I want to highlight in this session is one of the aspects of philosophy, which is particularly the axiological position of philosophy. In general, when we look at the practice or the literature, we see that in terms of ontology, epistemology, as well as logic, there's no much of an issue there. But there's a little bit of quietness on the aspect of axiology. And that seems to be the real hurdle to make system science deliver what it aimed to. So here is the effort to clarify the axiology and then how that gets into practice. Practice includes both designing, strategizing, and implementing, and as well as living. So it's linked to not only thinking, but doing, which includes practice either in terms of research or in terms of action on the ground, and including living. So the lack of coherence in the three could become the hurdle for really getting the benefit of system science. And when they come closer or they become more coherent, the performance is phenomenal. So that's the broad theme of the discussion today. So this is the brief idea that I want to share, what I understand by regenerativeness. It is a state of balance within a system and coherence across systems that lead to a flourishing state, and it's a concept which is applicable from string or quantum level to universal systems across space and time. So that's a very, very large claim being made, but that's based on some of the very simple experiments and results over the last about thinking for about 35 years and working on the ground for around 25 years. So we will see some of, therefore, the experimental results at systemic level that show that it is achievable by tuning basically our axiological position or intentionality to the natural axioms in our thinking, doing, and living. So let me first outline the natural axioms that is used to develop this AISS. There are only 3 axioms it builds on, and as system scientists, we are all aware of this. We are quite, we spend enough time thinking about it and applying this. So the first one is about interconnectedness of everything with everything. The second axiom it builds on is that they're interdependent. Everything is interdependent. Now here, everything includes not only living species, but biotic or abiotic or natural forces that exist in the planetary system or the universal system. So it's all connected and interdependent is the other 2 first axioms. And the third axiom is that they do interact, whether we like it or not. Everything interacts with everything, and that's how the 3 leads to chaos or unpleasant situations as well as pleasant situations. So both degeneration and regeneration takes place because of these 3 that are taking place. Now, if we were to shape degeneration towards regeneration, human beings appears to have only 1 degree of freedom. That's the 4th axiom, which is the intentionality. So depending on the nature of intentionality or the axiological position, we either add to the chaos or degeneration, or we can shape it or direct it towards a little bit of an order that you like to have, that is towards regenerativeness. So those are the 4 foundational axioms on which AISS is built. So what it argues and first of all, it says that because of the first 3, there is change in whatever we are seeing, and the nature of change is affected by our intentionality. So these are the 4 axioms. And the invitation, therefore, in AISS is in order to seek balance within the system and coherence across systems to be able to achieve that regenerativeness. And that requires, therefore, an axiological position, the appropriate methodology, appropriate design of systems, and then the transition towards regenerativeness. The transition because we are not in a clean state where you can design and go ahead. There is a built environment which may be chaotic. From that built environment, you have to move to something that you are looking forward. If it is regenerative, you move towards that. So there is a transition strategy as well involved. So while theory may look very simple, the practice of it usually is very, very, very challenging or is a long-term process. So the first 3 gives us this understanding of the nothingness of any entity in a system. Once that is understood, the intentionality could be more clearer. The intentionality then becomes if an entity is this is extremely a difficult position that's been placed here. This questions the Cartesian view of black and white, I and U. It merges the I and U and goes into Husserl's idea of phenomenology in terms of philosophical groundings. And then it has much more broader connotation to the ideas of non-dualism in Buddhism, or it goes to the traditional views of high levels of interconnectedness. So once the first part is understood, the nothingness of any entity in a system without the other, once that is understood, the axiological position or intentionality becomes clearer in terms of focusing on the other, and particularly when it comes to actions in specific systems, we look for the other weakest centered approach. So the further development of it would actually come in a linear thinking. we can think of the weak. But that's a system's first principle. The strength of a chain is the strength of the weakest link. But that's a linear thinking. In a non-linear thinking, it actually becomes everyone is a complementary. They are complementary to every other entity in the system. So there's nothing called weak and strong, but they are complementing each other in different ways. At one linear level, you may see that as a weak, but in the non-linear interconnected systems level, it does not remain weak, but it becomes complementary. So this is the foundational understanding of AISS. To take this forward, let me pose to you how the idea of sustainability currently presented or thought of could be seen differently from the AISS position. So you can see here that in the first one, the standard framework of sustainability, you see the framework as a kind of trade-off between these different entities, social, economic, environment, whereas in the AISS framework, they are not trading off. They are embedded into each other and are complementary to each other. So that's the core difference that comes in. And even though sustainability refers to that common zone, it does not describe how these three are linked, because in the first standard framework, they appear to be all equal and they are trying to compete with each other. And therefore, there's a trade-off that's taking place and gradually you get to sustainability. Whereas in the other one, it says, no, there's no question of trade-off, they're complementary. And there's only prioritization and embeddedness in the structure of reality. So that's the first difference, because all of you are looking at sustainability as an issue. So this global framework of sustainability needs to be compared with the understanding of AISS. What it also says here in the AISS framework for regenerativeness is that if we can fix the ecology, social and political balance, economic becomes a manifestation. It's just an output of the balance or imbalance of the first three layers. So that's a very important position it takes. So that is where it moves from just a systemic analysis to an ecosystemic analysis. So there's a prioritization of where the focus needs to be to achieve better performance, the sustainability or next level performance of regenerativeness, or the highest level of performance to a flourishing state. So when we look at our reality and our education, our thinking, our specialization, these are the broad areas that we have: economic, political, social, environment, or natural sciences. And each of them have many fields within them. So in economic, we can think of the primary sector or secondary or services, production. Most engineers, we as engineers would look at production. And then, of course, they're all within an organization. Same way, when we look at political, it could be institution or governance, or when social aspects are primarily an issue of relationships or ecology or physics, chemistry, biology, or any of those fields. We see them, of course, as disciplinary fields, and we try to research, and that's how we have moved from disciplinary to multidisciplinary to interdisciplinary to systems to transdisciplinary, and we're going into further integration of these. So this is how the systemic thinking has evolved, because disciplinary understanding and disciplinary approach to problem solving is not able to solve problems, because reality is not linear, but it's non-linear and interconnected. So the way AISS looks at is that they are an interlocked dimensions of these pillars within an ecosystem. So this is how it conceptualizes the sense of reality and hence the approach to solving problems in the reality. And at the heart of it, it says these different embedded layers are all having the same aspect of interactions, that everything interacts with everything and evolves in that system. And that formulation can be placed as a kind of a science. So in the first illustration, I'm going to show you how this science was learned as well as adopted in the sector of agriculture. In fact, the research for me about 18 years or so began with organization. In fact, this goes down to almost 35 years studying organizations. Much of my time, around 15 years, went studying organizations and a lot of failures in making them sustainable. So it started with studying multinational corporations from different parts of the world and studying multinational corporations in India, and then seeing the design problems, the theoretical contradictions, and it went on to study collectives, farmer-producer organizations. And from the failures and understanding and successes of stabilizing organization, it led to get to the production system, which was agriculture. So this is a very interesting space to study and understand regenerativeness, because it's a agroecological system which has the natural system plus the human systems and artificial systems coming together and creating a chaos, and you can actually solve it. The results are much fascinating to see in a very short time. I, being starting as a chemical engineer, was responsible producing for, my task was largely, my first task, of course, was producing fertilizers. And of course, I became a design engineer. But now, with all this experience, I do not prescribe fertilizers for farming. So this is the nature of transformation that takes place as you understand the relationships that exist between different factors. So let me show you how this science, in a way, was applied and what is the practice, what is the design. I'll talk later. If there are more questions, I'll talk about the logics and design subsequently, but let me just show you what kind of performance we achieved while using these basic principles of AISS. So this is the first experiment in the field of primary production, that is agriculture. This came, of course, as I said, after the experiments in organization, but I'm showing this first because it's so fascinating to see the application and the outcomes visible so quickly. So this was the one of the plots. The condition of the plot was like this, and with the intervention of this approach, this plot became like this. So the amount of water was at the ground level, and this was achieved in drought conditions. The rainfall was half the normal rainfall in that particular year, 2021. This was, as I said, this was after an experiment which was already in 2016. So we had figured out what to do, and we applied that, and then this is how it responded. In a dry, hilly area, in a higher altitude, hilly area. It's a tribal district of the state where I am currently based. So this was the experiment which came about after about 6 to 7 years of work on the ground with FPOs and looking at the practices of farmers. But this was in 2016, and this is how the plot that we got looked like. It was a 1 hectare plot, but you can see the condition of the land. It's on one side you can see garbage, on the other side is just an abandoned piece of plot. The organic carbon tells that it's very poor soil, and when we began. This type of soil, or this condition of soil, transformed in about 5 to 6 months into a different kind of place. So from May, middle of May, in fact, that year we started the preparation of land from 16th of May. And by 29th, we finished all the preparations. By 30th, we showed the seed because we had seen the weather patterns, and it was to rain from 1st of June. And as predicted, the rains came in 1st of June. So from June to November, by November, this was a different plot. And this is how it began. From this, it changed to this. So I think you, as systems scientist, you can appreciate the transformation that can happen. So this was how the first 5-6 months of transformation that took place. And we, of course, been recording since 2016, and the first 3 years we did a systematic work, so until around 2019. And then we took that experiment to other locations in the state, 3 other places that we took to. So let me just show you the first 3, and then, of course, the recent ones for you to see how it moves from high level of performance to a more exciting and beautiful transformation that takes place. Not only in terms of the way it looks, the quality it provides, but it also, of course, adds to the income of the farmer or of the farm. So from here, the same year, it's in the second year. I'm going to take you to the second year. This in the second year was looking like this. Of course, you can see that from monocropping, we had come to some more multiple cropping. But one of the crops, that is the pulse, which is nitrogen fixing plant, was still 1/3 of the land. And of course, we had already harvested one crop from maize, was already harvested, and it was being prepared for the next crop. There is this, and in the second, third cycle of this season or this year was looking like this. So you can see the second crop has also come out. The third crop is on, whereas this is going to stay for 8 months. So it's going to fix the nitrogen gradually. So we can see by third year, the landscape was changing. You can see a lot of grass necessary for cows, the cattle on the farm, which provides the manure, the cow dung. So this was the greenery or biomass that was coming into the farm gradually. This is the third year pictures that you're seeing. But you can also see that the place which was empty in the first image that you saw on one side, it was empty. These trees have been planted. These are forest trees largely, around 40 varieties of trees, very carefully designed to capture sunlight. So this was all placed, planted in the first year. And by third year, you can see the growth, almost 30, 35, 40 feet it had reached. And these were all for the purpose of these boxes that you see here, honeybee boxes. So in order to take care of these honeybees, these were planted. And of course, this has other functions. And those of you who are familiar with agricultural systems would know that they have several other functions, reducing temperature, checking wind speed, and providing biomass to the soil. And all these benefits come through the ecological factor in the production system. But this, the primary focus is to ensure that your bees get flowers throughout the year. And because in the early years, you're not able to grow crops throughout the year because the soil is extremely bad. The condition, microclimatic condition is not still up to mark. So you need food for the bees. So this is a structure that is laid down for that purpose. So this was some of the things, and then you can see here these are the real workers. So when we say all interacting, it's just not human beings. There are also other species which are interacting to produce whatever we see there. This is just one of these species, but there are many more there. We'll see that gradually. So these are some of the crops that we got from year 1 and subsequently, and so on and so forth. We can see the quality the health, or of course, we have just sent it now for microbiomes in these crops. Some of the best mangoes of this part. We have not used any fertilizer or pesticides here. These are indigenous seeds. You can see the growth. Again, in all indigenous seeds here. We grow this throughout the year. Milk from the cows, fodder goes from the farm as a processed milk, as a ghee. Honey, of course, limited, but mostly medicinal. Now, this, when we look at, of course, we moved, we were working in other places, and then I'll show you how this farm, because we understood the science, it was not very difficult to transform any time. And this is a little transformation that we did in the last 6 months, 8 months. You can see from October to May. This is a little change that we made in terms of watering. Earlier, we used to water through pipes, and of course, there were already pipes laid down. But we picked, instead of using any kind of drip irrigation, we use sprinklers as part of water. The understanding was it was not water which was required, it was the moisture which was required, and moisture was required for everyone. So if I use a drip technology, I give water to a selected portion of the plant. So it's the scientists would say, agricultural scientists would say, it's a very efficient method of watering. But we had enough water. There was no issue with water for us, because we are holding all the water that rained on this farm, and there's enormous amount of water that you get. So every centimeter would give you about 100,000 liters of water per hectare. So that's too much of water that you already have. So if you get 70 centimeter or 1,000 mm or 100 centimeter rainfall, you get so much water, you don't know what to do with it. So there is enough water for everyone. So this sprinkler is used so that moisture is available to all species, plants and grass and what we call weeds or butterflies or bees. Everyone gets water. It's just not your plant, that your commercial plant. So bringing in that axiology of the point that you have to, that they're all connected, they all are part of the production process. So you have to take care of everyone's requirement. So the choice of technology is influenced by the axiological position that you have figured out that works on the ground. Whereas my colleagues in the agricultural universities would typically recommend drip irrigation, because water is very scarce, and therefore you need to preserve water and use it very carefully for your own commercial purpose of the human being or the farmer. So you can see the transformation that was taking place, and of course, some of these were trees that we had already planted in the first year, so they are gradually grown, and we keep adding more. And this is sometimes, I think it was in March. There was March, I'm referring to these months in the Indian context is extremely hot. By May, it's the hottest month of the year. I think yesterday, day before, this week was around 42 to 45 degrees centigrade. And at those temperatures, in an open system, the farm's condition looked like this. So we could grow crops, which is usually grown in cooler climates. This is carrot. We could grow this. It was there till I think we recently harvested. Even in this peak of the season, we are able to. So this also is fascinating. We had it for a very long time on the farm. It was not Otherwise, it typically spoil faster. But this was existing because we are growing along with the weeds. So the summer was creating the conditions for it to stay on for a longer time. Instead of taking it to a cold storage, it was there on the farm, and till we needed to consume, we left it on the farm. So this also, as I said, we grow throughout the year now. Anytime we want, we can grow it. We have the appropriate microclimate for facilitating this growth. Well, this is once again, you can imagine the first plot condition, and to this, it's a fascinating journey that one can see. You can see there some, this is spinach, and then you have a little away, you can see those are beet, and this quality. The beet quality here is, this beet is very different from what we get in the market. And the leaves are also advised that we eat those leaves as well. Is very rich in the nutrients. Well, and these are other crops that you can see. Just took out from the soil. It's not yet washed. So you can see those potatoes. Well, and these are some more crops. This is still on the farm. We still get this at this period of the year, summer period. This is a classic comparison between the first image that you saw and what it looked. This was sometimes, I think, in the month of March. Gary had visited until around the first few pictures that you saw. And this is after Gary's visit, that was in December. These are, again, recent pictures from the farm. This is still there on the farm in the peak. Anyway, summer is the month where, or the period where you get varieties of mangoes. It's a new variety. It's a Miyazaki variety. It's on the farm now. And this kind of tells us that in the peak of summer, if your land is ready to receive seeds for sowing, that shows there is a transformation in the microclimatic condition and the soil condition, which shows that there's a huge transformation that has already occurred. So what is the sum and substance of this transformation is a very simple logic of the system science that we use. The first is if you want all these three, first of all, these three are sorted out. These are the issues that you have: air pollution or water pollution or soil health conditions. These leading to rising temperature. And current expenditure worldwide, the expenditure on balancing this is around $1.24 trillion per annum. And in the consequences, the negative consequences of this is estimated by the World Bank to be around $6 trillion. So the cost is very high. The temperature rises by 1 degree. The yield on an average reduces by about 20%. So when the temperature rises and the soil pollutes and water, so these are severe issues that creates polycrisis in our setting. But these are kind of resolved in this small farm setup, in the experimental setup that we see, that all these three are actually resolved. I'll show you the figures subsequently, but substantial improvements: temperature down by about 5 degrees, organic carbon rising from 0.3 to 0.98, water abundant. We say in the case of water, it can rain any time of the year. It doesn't really matter to the farm. It will use whenever it wants. It has created a mechanism to hold every drop of water under its soil. Even if some of it percolates out from the farm area, still there is abundant water on the farm. So the ecological position of this whole experiment can be, in simple terms, presented in this way: that if I want water, I need to take care of life below the soil. If I want water, I need to take care of the microbes in the soil, this life below the soil. And if I want yield or I want better crop production, then I need to take care of life just above the soil. So the strength of a chain is the strength of the weakest link is what gets manifested here. And this is the basic principle that is adopted, or the ecological position that we take in order to make this farm highly productive. So that was the first illustration, but we can also apply that to other dimensions that I referred to, and we've been working on the different dimensions over the years. In some, we have worked more extensively. In some, we are working, and the work is still in progress, that we can say, in terms of really rebuilding a regenerative ecosystem. And this ecosystem, of course, can be in rural ecosystem, it can be urban ecosystem or industrial ecosystem or natural ecosystems. It really is everywhere. Some of this or all of these will be playing a role. So here is the second experiment, which is actually the first experiment, which was done in 2009 to begin with. This was on looking at designing organizations. As I said, I had spent nearly 15 years studying multinational corporations. The designs were there was no diseconomies of scale that a perfect market competition proposed for. There's only economies of scale, and that is probably was becoming the problem for the economies to be under strain and vulnerability and so on and so forth. So the practices were just opposite to what I was seeing theoretically required for sustainability. So we moved, my work moved from studying multinational corporations to collectives or cooperatives or small organizations, and then to see what really works in this kind of setting. Because even in the cooperative sector, we had some very large cooperatives like Amul. You might have heard this name. It's a National Dairy Development Board's supported Amul, which is a milk based farmer producer company, which is also built on the design of typical large multinational corporation. It was doing very well with regard to supplying milk to the whole country, but it was not doing that kind of bringing that kind of wellness to the members of the organization, with the farmers. So there was this design issue, and we were in that context. Therefore, I was looking at what really makes designs sustainable. And this I particularly brought because I understand most of you are concerned with organization, and you can see that organization is actually the most critical one or the most challenging one, and it lies in this framework at the periphery of that means if we fix all the other down below, this will get fixed. But if we try to just fix this without not making any changes on the other layers, this is a challenging task, and this is what we currently actually face. So let's see how the experiment was done and what were outcomes that we saw from here. This was 2007, 2008, and this was the conditions. Again, another tribal district, very far off from the state capital. So this was the condition, and this is the nature of very low incomes. Current incomes of Orissa is in the tune of just 5,000 odd rupees per household per month. That's for Orissa. For India, it's around 10,000 rupees per household per month. And I'm talking about 15 or 18 years ago, so the figures would be far lower. We saw the prices of produce that they were selling it was far lesser, 30% of what the market was actually getting it at. So the condition was really vulnerable, or rather a difficult condition in which it was operating. So we try to look at how we design a collective for this Gram Panchayat, people of this Gram Panchayat. So, of course, the process of collectivization began with a lot of training, a lot of mobilization. And so when you work with people, it's more challenging than working on a farm. The number of variables have obviously manifold as compared to a farm setup. But you can see that the participation, because of the crisis, people were willing to come together and listen and do something differently for improving their own well-being. And of course, a lot of experts were involved here, social workers, social scientists, agricultural scientists. So it's a multidisciplinary team that was working. And of course, we are trying to see how we're going to fix it, how we can improve the situation of this community. The whole series of work, this is documented pretty well. And if you want more, I can share that subsequently. This was the geography. We limited the size of the geography to just one Gram Panchayat, which is the basic unit of governance in the Indian context. Similarly, across the world, you have the lowest unit of governance in every part of the world. And in India, we have called a Gram Panchayat. So there were around 21 villages, and they were all taken together. 21, there were hamlets, so almost around 27 hamlets, but all within a distance of around 3 to 5 kilometers. So that was very important in terms of designing, that when you are dealing with complex settings, you can't take very large scale because that the number of variables and the complexity would increase. So we want to limit it to an optimal size and work within that boundary of the system. And there are other reasons why we picked the Gram Panchayat as the boundary to work with. There are many other aspects to balance and achieve coherence. So the optimal position that was arrived at was a Gram Panchayat. That's another explanation, but not for today. So, well, people had lots of types of crops. They were growing all this and very high protein levels in many of these crops, but the price that they got was far, far lower, maybe 25% of what the market was selling at. So, and they were, most of them were by default organic. So we started working with whatever they had first, and then we gradually complemented it. So these are all there, some of the crops, practices. So just trying to put them together and find value. This is one of the forest produce, which was actually giving the maximum margin to the members. But otherwise, they were selling it at very low price. So this is, of course, just showing you that the first round, they were selling some items, say, at 25 units or 25 rupees. And with the collectivization, they raised that price to 47. So almost getting it to 100% rise in their realization. So the power of collectivization, but the way you collectivize is what is the key. Lot of participation. People were seeing the benefits of this collectivization. So good number of participation. In fact, we started with one Gram Panchayat. We wanted to work in one Gram Panchayat, but there were people from 6 different Gram Panchayats, 7 different Gram Panchayats, all coming there. You want to be part of this. So, but from design principle, that was not the way. So for the first year, we entertained for a while, but gradually we split them. We said we will do different clusters in different panchayats. So you'll have to make your own clusters. It will not be appropriate to have them in one cluster. So subsequently, we made 2 Gram Panchayats. And of course, now we are trying to get, once it's a work with the government, that they have to coordinate, they have to facilitate to get other panchayats to also have their own FPOs. Interestingly, I was asked to subsequently write the national guideline for the FPOs and subsequently the national policy on FPOs. And in that policy, we have, of course, been able to convince all that we should have the FPOs at a Gram Panchayat level and not at a higher level. Gram Panchayat level is the optimal size. So that's there in the policy now, already put in place at the national level. And There are variations, but it's already there as part of the policy. So the experimental results found its answer into the policy very, very quickly. It was convincing. It was producing results, so it has gone into the policy lines already. So you can see men, women, all good number. And of course, the members of this collective was not just men or just women, but the families became the members of this collective, because farming is a family activity in this part or in the other parts of the world as well. So the families became the members of these FPOs. So in the participation, you can see both men, women joining in the meetings and discussions. A whole series of training is required or was required. A curriculum was developed again for the national government on how to train local youth to manage FPOs. So this also became, it was a multidisciplinary team working to develop a curriculum which could then be used for training the FPO members or FPO, particularly FPO managers, and not coming from expensive business schools, but take local boys and girls, train them the basic principles, processes of how to manage organizations, and they could handle it themselves pretty well. And they did show that. In fact, we were struggling with a lot of things, and we were thinking about market issues, market landscape. So the market went for us. I took it up to 350, 400 kilometers. Products was going outside India, some of them, because it was just a novelty. So some of the friends and all, they would take it to UK or to Australia or New Zealand, it would go all that. But we said the transaction costs are very high for them to maintain this. So when we reduced the market distance to 50 kilometers, these boys and girls were creating profits. Till that time, when the market landscape was going unwieldy, uncontrolled, then actually the transaction cost was very high. So there is this understanding of what is the optimal market distance in this kind of context that would make the maximum outcome for the members. So all these were part of the study, and that's how we were arriving at how to design an FPO. Government providing infrastructure, some support and training, continuous, and marketing they produce. So all this was very fascinating experience to understand how you could build communities. So these are some of the infrastructure, and of course, then we added health issues, education issues into the FPO. Because children had to be taken care of, women have to be taken care of, and a holistic development plan was emerging out of it. This was, of course, the structure, a little different from a hierarchical structure in typical MNCs, which have very large market landscapes. These were the directors of the FPO, the local people, local leaders, who have actually a much better skill to manage at the local level than any outsider who may come in. These were local boys and girls who were managing the FPO. They became the managers, and typically the subscription till then was that they should come from professional business schools to manage these collectives, but these guys were actually doing it fine, provided the design was in place. So, a lot of it there, but what I want to now take you through is we also subsequently clubbed these two. We took agriculture, we took FPO, we took local governance, local institutions, relationships, and then tried to have a more comprehensive intervention. And that was, of course, not, that was just for 2 years. We saw the results quickly, but what it meant was all these features or all these dimensions had to be studied. So a lot of subsequent doctoral work was taking place, research was taking place in all these different fields, whether it was organization or manufacturing or services or agriculture or governance or institutions or relationships and ecology. So a number of PhDs were working on different topics on this to figure out what is the more sustainable design features that help you to balance and that helps you to provide coherence. Of course, the PhD was more about understanding the balance. For us at the center level, we were trying to see, okay, which are the variables which are which are in balance within the system and coherence across the system. I'll come to that subsequently, but these were the issues that were looked at, and out of which we were obviously looking at the variables which were degenerative in nature and the variables which were having the potential for regenerative nature. And we'll see in the case of agriculture FPO, because we just saw that in a little bit detail, but that's the same case applied to whether it was governance or institutional and so on and so forth. So we expanded this in the recent year or so to look into the health issues, health factors, and what are regenerative, what are degenerative, as well as in the education. So it covers now almost 10 different dimensions and looks at the variables which are degenerative or design variables which are regenerative. Now, when we actually go into building the whole community, so we look at all these 8, including the 2 more, which becomes 10. So in the services, we have health and education. So of these 10 dimensions, here you see 8, health and education being part of service sector, you see therefore 8, but actually there are 10. We took this 4 or 5, agriculture, organization, governance, part of institution, relationships, not much. We were talking about ecology, but we could incorporate. So this was the experiment in 2020. So having completed the first 2 rounds, we had moved it to a broader integration that we were seeing. And the results, of course, the process of doing is far more complicated. It's not simple. I think as system scientists, I think you will appreciate this this way of working. It's simultaneous and it's sequential, simultaneous, everything is happening. Many things are happening at the same time. It's handling and the complexity is not easy. Of balancing them becomes a challenging process. But this is the process in which the experiment was undertaken. The results were seen, and we could see the results. The results in terms of the incomes, it was quickly go up to 5 times. Very easy to get to 5 to 10 times in the Orissa context. In the Indian context, we go at 5 times. In the Orissa context, it was very easy to reach to 10 times of what they were already doing. But it required a systematic and systemic intervention. These terms are not new for all of you, so you can relate to. So these are the stages of interventions and impact. Very, very promising. We have seen the results. We have seen some panchayats attempting at it, and the results are there for you to see. And this is only with a few interventions. And when we get there, when we get there to integrating all of these, balancing all of these, just not integrating, but balancing and achieving coherence, the results can go up to more than 10 times. So this is what we are asking now the government. There's some interest in different governments to try it out at a whole level. So this is where I would invite you, if any of you are interested, any of you have the field community connections, you want to do this, we can easily implement this. Science is available. It's now a question of how to transit. What is your transition strategy to make it possible? So what it tells us here is, as I showed you in the initial global standard framework of sustainability, this is stating that economic indicators, the economic performance is only a manifestation of balance of ecology, social and political indicators. So it's to work on these basics is so important to improve or reduce vulnerability in economic space. So that's about it. I would stop here for the moment, and I think I have already taken an hour. That's a pretty long time. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and look forward to your responses, questions.
Hi, Amar. Thank you very much. So we usually keep this open-ended for everyone to benefit and have most opportunity to ask questions. So with this, I'm opening the floor. And I think we already have Peter, who is happy to ask the first question. Thank you very much, Amar. This was excellent.
Thank you. Peter has raised his hand.
Yeah, Peter is on mute. It's your turn, Peter. You're on mute, Peter?
You are muted, Peter.
It's happened. There you are. May I first say, Emma, I think I'm speaking for everybody when I say that was inspirational and very interesting and very scientific and very relevant. My question is, how would we scale this up? You must have thought of this.
Can you be a little louder?
How would you scale this up? It's clear. I mean, I've already reached the conclusion that we've got to sustain the world bottom up, and it's about communities working upwards. But how do you see upwards?
On the question, can you repeat the question?
Yes. How would this scale
I would
to a
share
national or a global
how do you
level?
scale?
Yes.
Yeah. The concept of scale and scope, or the idea of scale doesn't really work for sustainability or regenerativeness. The idea of not scale, but idea of replication. So if you can do it in one gram panchayat, do the same in another gram panchayat and 1,000 other gram panchayats. And there is a architecture that I provide in one of the books as how do you integrate one level to the next level to the next level. But at the core, it is not scaling; it is replication.
That's what I'm thinking about, which is how to think in multi-levels. And there is some literature on that sort of a thing. I don't. You must have read it, I'm sure. Holarchy is.
Yeah. So we have done that with regard to taking from the gram panchayat to block level and then to district level, and that is enough for the universe, for the whole world. If you can operationalize up to district level, then it can engage with any part of the world. It has the size. It has the size and variety to engage with any part of the world. You don't need the country to engage. The district can engage.
So it's a system of communities, basically.
Yes. So this notion of scale is a very linear idea of that we use in industrial corporations.
Yeah, I understand that too. I've been working in the same area, but I'm a systems engineer, so I might have overstructured it, but I don't know. I'm interested in sharing ideas with this group at some point.
Thank you. There's a paper which I can share relating to scale and scope, and that gives a sense of how we can actually make it feasible for everyone, not just one small community.
Well, I'm in a slightly difficult position. I just submitted it for review in a conference, and I'm not quite sure where that stands. If I can share it with you guys, but I've sent it privately to Kai just to look at it to see whether it makes sense. We'll see. I mean, I'll know in a month or two whether I'm free to. I would love to share ideas with you. I can see what you're doing.
Thanks a lot, Peter and Amar. I think Kai had to leave, so now I will take the lead and try to have people ask their questions. Bruce, you raised hand. Maybe you're the second one.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. Have you compared the principles that you're using with the principles coming out of permaculture? Are there very similar kinds of elements? Because that seems to be another movement that is moving in a very similar direction.
Indeed. So permaculture will come closest to it. What we have done is we've identified, in fact, when I started in India alone, we had 9 nomenclatures to this type of farming. So it took me nearly 6 years to figure out what it really has in common. And from those observations of this, we found that most of them are using either 1 or 3 of the factors, 3 of the relevant variables. And none of them was using, but all of them together were using those 5. But none of them was using more than 2, maximum 3. So I think, but the closest, you're right, permaculture will become the closest to that. So when you look at agroecology of the UN, you will actually find the production variables as well as organization variables are part of that. So they give you 10 principles but it's actually drawing from all this set that I already showed you. So within agriculture, you may only have these 5 which are critical.
Okay, because there are quite a few different schools of thought, I guess, to do this, and it's bringing all of that together in some ways where there are common elements. I think the other interesting area, which I don't know whether you've looked at, is the influence of the traditional agriculture and how strong they are embedded in certain areas, and how to change that type of approach. Have you looked at that?
We did that. In fact, much of the learning for this came from farmers themselves. I probably went around the country 3 times to meet indigenous farmers and different types of farmers. And the knowledge that has come together is from the field, from the farmers, not from the books and agricultural scientists. And since I was not an agricultural scientist, it was easy for me not to look at that and look at what people are doing. So much of the wisdom is drawn from there. But of course, they have a belief and they have an understanding, but they didn't have the explanation or the full explanation. So you're not able to codify it. So for instance, there's a mixed farming, which we call diversified farming. So people who, the farmers would just throw a mix of several seeds, and they would keep harvesting for about 8 months, different things from the farm. And they had a sophisticated way of course, selecting the seeds and throwing them. In fact, in one of the communities in Andhra Pradesh, when I went to visit them, they welcomed me with their local folk song, and it sounded nice. It was of course pleasing. But subsequently, when I asked what did it mean, they told me that it's actually mentioning the different seasons of the year and what seeds to sow in different seasons of the year. So I asked, how many seasons are you describing? I was thinking it is 4 seasons. They told me it's 29 seasons.
I think what you're very connected to the local, but these industrial farms with big tractors and monocrops and all of that have a strong hold in a number of areas. And I guess it's a question of how you kind of start chipping away at those kind of practices, which are all fertilizer based, which you're definitely not doing. And even some of the industrial animal production is quite polluting. And so it's quite a big challenge to get that to spread without having to figure out a strategy to reduce the industrial farming kind of concepts. So I think that's the question that I had.
Absolutely. When we look at resolving the problem at the farm level, it's far easier. But when you want to do it across the society, then we find that the problems in the farming sector, just around maybe 10 or 20% of the problems lies within agriculture, and the rest 80-90% lies outside agriculture. So the same thing happens to every other subsystem. So unless there is coherence across the subsystems, you cannot get the full output of that system across the space. In a farm, you can do it. But across in a community, you look at governance, you look at subsidy policy, you look at institutions, you have so many other things. That's how those 50 factors that I'm showing there, actually within the domain, only 10 to 20% is what you can deal with on a larger scale. We want to take it to a larger scale, then the issues are lying outside its own domain. So they're interconnected issues that are there.
They're all interconnected. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tom, it's your turn.
Yeah, well, maybe just building on what Bruce just said. I mean, I noted in the ecosystem model that, you had most of the pestle, but not the tea in there. So I was wondering, was the specific reason for leaving technology out of it?
Okay. If you look at each of these subsystems or each of the dimensions, technology is inbuilt into it. So when I say agriculture, the key technology that we are referring to there is seed. So seed is already there. So it's actually technology is part of every subsystem, but it's specific to its own system.
Makes sense.
Okay. You see, you're saying, maybe I didn't catch, seed is the technology for your
Yes,
first example.
The core, the key technology in agriculture is seed. So therefore Monsanto, Bill Gates Foundation are all after that.
Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Thanks for the explanation.
The industrial farming is very heavily built on technology. And that's the kind of trade-off, because I didn't see a lot of technology in the pictures that you showed. I mean, and traditionally in terms of tractors and things like that. And in a small farm like that, you don't need big tractors. Or you may need some tractors to move things around, but
when we say fertilizers is a part of industrial technology, we're saying it's an opposite of that. You don't need fertilizer. You need on-farm biomass. So actually, there's a reflection of the technology there. When you say seed, it is not exotic seeds or GM seeds or hybrid seeds. You're referring to indigenous seeds. So basically, you're talking about genetic stability. So it's a technology. So technology is everywhere inside. In every other, if you look at the design, technology is built into all the subsystems. But you're right, technology is key.
But so this seed as a technology is a special technology because it's local. It comes from the local territory. The farmer builds his own seed for the next year. So it's not that same as technology coming from a multinational company with all the same genome or the same with the product outside the seed to help the seed grow. So I think it's special technology. This example of the seed as a technology is a little.
So when we say when we say genetic stability, that would clarify a lot of it. So in the term that is used is genetic stability. So unstable, for whether it's in animal or in plant or in seeds, it's the nature of genetic material that is being promoted. So when you say indigenous seeds or genetic matter, these are highly balanced in the nature and they're more stable and they can handle variations in climate and weather.
Yeah. Stable thanks to evolution. Stable thanks to moving.
The same is true for the fertilizer, because the fertilizer technology is based on the soil and other biomass around the soil. So you don't need to bring in a lot of fertilizer and spread fertilizer. It is essentially grown in the farm.
Exactly.
And it's created, and the approach to rebuilding and regenerating the soil and the elements in the soil is very different. It's not machine-based, it's place-based.
Thank you, Bruce. That's a technology, highly advanced technology.
It is.
I see we have another question from Mike.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much for the talk. And I must admit, I had to step away for about 10 minutes. So I'll really need your slides or watch the recording. And to full disclosure, I grew up on a traditional farm in northern Germany years ago. So essentially, it effectively based a compromise between no waste farming and also using fertilizer and crop rotation and having pigs, cows, chickens, seed potatoes, seed wheat, etc., etc. So really based on a lot of traditional technology effectively or approaches. So I fully appreciate what you're trying to do and how you are essentially enriching the soil naturally, so to speak, and try to preserve it or better it, regenerate it. The big questions that arise are, of course, how do we feed cities? And how do we produce the food to feed Delhi, for example, right? And so I don't know. Do you know the Fontaine ring system? Ring. It's a German economist. He was the first one who talked about the supply system for cities. So like rings around a city, like what needed to be produced closest and then further away to be able to transport it and so on. So that was one approach. The other thing that I've been thinking about, and that was the the reason we have those huge farms, say in Argentina, to supply meat for, say, I don't know which country, but why are those farms essentially multinationals? And one of the things that comes into it is the control of the food quality and the traceability of, say, like a health issue back to the source. And so when we go to this ecological regenerative farming approach, which is relatively small in scale and very labor intensive, how do we use that to fulfill these needs of feeding cities and the control of the quality and health monitoring issues on the food system?
Thank you. That's a typical question that should be asked.
I'm sorry, but
no. This opens up a whole host of issue with regard to coherence. I have to rely on these slides once again to make the point so that we are better positioned. So if we look at this. If you just look at this part, what I was recommending or experimenting and showing you is a result of this set of variables: farm diversity to be high, farm forestry to be adequate, seed to be genetic material to be stable, water to be in situ, soil to be enabling system and not fertilizers. So this is the set of variables I'm referring to. And when you do this, the question that you're raising is relevant, that how do I feed or make this compatible to a system where it is like this? It's on this end of the spectrum. When you say organization, large organization, or when you say the institution is top down, or when you say governance is centralized and it is cities in urban areas. So can't achieve this in this paradigm. If I want this, then I have to change my other systems as well. That is what I meant by coherence. You can't have both. They are opposites.
So we have to figure out how we need to figure out how we feed cities, because I don't.
No, the cities have to be transformed.
Yeah, but that's so. What is the transformation of the city that will enable that?
So when we come to cities, let's look at how the city governance is structured. If you say that, well, the institutions, how are the institutions and governance structure? They are on this end.
Yeah.
So this is incompatible with this. So this has to get compatible with this production system. If you want health to improve, we can't have health with this kind of food. because food is nothing but microbiomes.
Yep.
It is gut microbes, which means soil microbes. So if soil microbes is in balance, my gut microbe can't be in balance. No matter where I live, Moon or a city, New York or London, it really doesn't matter. So now the choice is for us. Do I want to not change this and have this? Or if I want to have this, I have to also change this to this side. So this is where, when we talk about quantity of production, the yield is 3 to 4 times in most crops. The income levels are 10 times in this kind of farming. It's therefore the production or yield issue is not an issue at all. Water is not an issue. Soil is not an issue. And therefore it's not in a scaling up mechanism, but a replication mechanism. So the whole, the language, the logic, and the values have to be transformed.
So it's sort of a
it's the
planetary
excess.
transformation.
Yeah. But I agree 100%. So we do have to solve the problems on the city side now. We know how to do the agriculture. We do know how to produce the food.
So cities, the structure, the governance, the institutions, the other things have to be aligned to, that's what I refer to, ecology, the lowest, the smallest in the system should determine the principles of our existence. So we have to move from being anthropocentric to ecosystemic. There is no way. You can fight it. You can have a war. You can have a battle, but you will not win it. So,
I think the other side of this is changing consumption patterns.
Yeah.
So that gets back to families and what they value and how they minimize their food waste and things like that. So we have a whole, it's not just the city, but it's all the elements within the city, including the family and consumption. So it's quite a interesting challenge. It's a big system of systems that needs to change coherently.
To be honest with you, it also has to do an awful lot with land use. Why do we in Western culture waste so much land on lawns? I mean,
And water and swimming pools.
That too. Well, I mean, the swimming pool might at least give you exercise, but
it's all trade-offs.
But the truth is, yeah. But I mean, yeah. I mean, we are cultivating lawns, and we don't even keep the grass clippings to enrich the soil. So I mean, it's like I'm fighting with my neighbors on that because they collect all the grass clippings. I said it's no good. Like you're depriving the soil, and they don't understand.
I didn't have a look at. Sorry for in closing this. I see that we have 2 or 3 messages in the chat. Does it look like question? Ryan, you said, are you still here, Ryan?
Yes, Wilson? I'm still here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Please, can you ask your question, please?
Yes, sure. So the question or the comment really was, as a systems engineer, and I state that just for relevance, and we're a mixed audience. Systems engineers, we use words defined by ISO 15288 just to avoid confusion. But not everybody else does that. It's just us weirdos, right? So my question then is, as systems engineers, I wonder how the various solutions are more industrial versus less industrial. Amar, I love the less industrial solutions you presented. How do they match the needs for any given context? And then particularly where sustainability traces back, it reflects to the needs. And again, just us weirdos, we see sustainability as an emergent property of the system, right? And you can have a need that traces back, right? You need to have a particular level of sustainability. So then, if I look at different solutions, like an industrial approach versus a less industrial approach, my question is, how best does it fit, right? How does it fit the needs? And in that case, where I care about sustainability, if the more industrial one is less sustainable, then that's not a good solution. So a bit of a comment in with the question. If we all agree that we care about sustainability, then, maybe the big machinery is a bad idea, right? And clearly a bad idea for the farmer who has to make a business decision.
Thanks, Ryan. So one good example that you have to look at industrial systems where this principle work is industrial symbiosis in Denmark. Just look it up how they do it. Basically, it's about circularity, circular economy.
Right.
So which is what I think Mike was referring to, that waste of one becomes an input to the other, and how this concept is very well applied in industrial symbiosis. It's around 12 companies. I think now it is around 25 items they are exchanging among themselves. All kinds of companies, petrochemical companies, water companies, cement companies. So all kinds of energy companies, they're all coming together to connect one with the other and creating that ecosystem, which is just like what you saw in the farm. It is a circular economy that you're creating, that nothing goes waste. But for that to function, it requires high level of trust, not on the basis of distrust. When you look at industrial systems, they are based on distrust. Therefore, contracts are a very important part of economic transactions. So that's if you look at economic transactions on which all this industrial system work is based on, one of the important aspects is contracts. The other one that we say is ownership, private ownership. But in these systems, they're open, they're common ownerships. So the same logic applies in the case of circular economy, in the case that you can see, because it's a live, wonderful example to look at. We have applied that in industrial, in urban sewage systems. It works fascinatingly well. So one of the things to remember is that industrial systems primarily enhances the frequency of interactions, of transactions. Frequency of interactions in the transactions. So for enhancing that frequency of interactions, we keep expanding our boundaries. We look for new set of buyers or new set of suppliers to keep that transactions increasing. Now we can do the same thing under a smaller economy that's called the circularity of relationships. So it's the same frequency of interaction. If the frequency of interaction in smaller systems comes down, it will not become high performance. We are saying we are producing 3 times, 10 times of income because we are enhancing the frequency of interaction in the same plot. And we understand that farming is nothing but harvesting sunlight.
Right.
So how do you harvest sunlight throughout the year? And in industrial farming, you harvest sunlight once a year for one particular crop. So for industrial systems, they too need to keep enhancing the frequency of interactions of transactions, or frequency of transactions in the local ecosystem. So this is a concept that one needs to apply, whether it's industrial or non-industrial or whatever. If you do farming, just say organic, but you're not able to harvest sunlight and water, then you're not enhancing the frequency of interactions. The science is in enhancing that frequency of interactions, and how do each of the players in the system are actually contributing to that process of production. So when we look at linear systems, industrial systems are again linear systems. Sorry.
So am I hearing then this implication that for built systems, if I use another term other than industrial systems, man-developed systems, we have to increase the degree of connectivity, maybe towards approaching the degree of connectivity of natural systems, of natural ecosystems?
We have to design in such a way that whether it is material or biotic or abiotic or other, the frequency of interaction has to be increased.
Yeah.
And this will come by our understanding of complementarity of the entities in the system. Industrial systems typically is linear in nature. It doesn't believe in this idea.
The root cause of the what does make the value, what is the real reason of the value of interaction? It means as soon as there is an interaction, there is a better behavior than if there is no interaction. Why do you say the enhancing the frequency of interaction is a good rule, I would say? Is there a root cause for this reason?
Interaction is the basis for change.
Okay. Yes, like in the chemical reaction or everywhere. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the basis of change. Now, to direct the change to a productive process, you need the axiological position.
Okay.
So if this axiology is interest-based axiology, then interaction will get limited. So therefore, when it gets limited, then I'll require contracts. I'll require other costs to ensure that this is not distrusted. So the cost of operation keeps increasing. So the net profit comes down. Though the revenue keeps growing, but the net return comes down.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's I don't know, some of it you may get it now, but it requires it requires longer.
Yeah, but it's looks like a different set of rules that bring better overall.
There's another trade-off too
Yeah.
in this, and that's the number of people involved in actually doing farming, and where you keep it local, and you can get more people involved because you have less demand for reducing people because of costs, that kind of thing. So there's this also trade-off that you can use people productively in a small area doing some of the technology that you've talked about without needing a lot of extra equipment and still being productive. Because some of the things that I've seen are the regenerative farms are actually more productive in some ways than the big industrial farms. So I think the output can be just as high or even higher, and especially if you can have crops around the year, different types of crops around the year. So I appreciate the talk. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we are at the end of the official time. If someone to stay and have a longer discussion, maybe we can stay 10 minutes more if needed. I don't see any more questions in the chat area. Am I wrong? Okay. Maybe if I may, I have a sort of a general question. What do you imagine as a roadmap? Because it seems very tempting, but very ambitious also. What should be one or several ways to not to go at scale, but to make a lot of copies, as you say. You don't say copy, but you say the what did you say? We said not going at scale, but going at replication. Yeah. How do you imagine this replication should succeed and progress and cannot hear you. Your mic is off. Sorry.
I got disconnected for a while Bruce was speaking, but nevertheless, thank you for your contribution to this understanding. What we are see in the Indian context, or in many other countries' context, it would be applicable. That when you look at the governance and administrative structure, it is built on 3 to 4 layers. In most countries, it is 3 layers, and in the context of China and Russia, it's 4 layers. So going from the bottom to the highest level at the country level. So it's the architecture is to fix the bottommost and then integrate with the next level to the next level. And at the district level, it gets sorted out.
Okay.
So if the district level, and which is a common unit across the world, we have everywhere we understand a district. So what we have looked at is the financial and technical viability at this lowest level of governance unit. So it's working there, and at the next level it's just about value addition, and the next level is at the distribution. So the three levels at which it can get sorted out. So it requires the participation of the government, because the government is obviously on the other paradigm because of the many interest and path dependencies in the built-in environment. So it's a gradual process of making it. Don't worry about the rest of the world. Do at your own local community level and understand the bigger picture, but we have to work at the local level. So I think there is no another way to do it. I don't have the top-down way of doing it, because if it is the interaction of all entities which actually produces wealth at the least cost.
There is a lot of activity going on to start integrating a lot of what you've talked about into farming practices. So in Oxford, there's a lot of stuff going on, especially with the real farming conferences and the some of the work going on and the United Nations is also working very hard at it. But I see this pushback from the existing community of farming that is resisting anything like that. So it's quite an interesting problem. Thanks again for the presentation.
Yes, thanks
you.
a lot. I think maybe we can stop here. If anybody has another comment or question, or should we leave here? Okay, so Professor Nayak, thanks once more. We're very happy. It was very passionate discussion and talk. And well, I hope we can go on discussion between the working group and you and your teams and have a follow-up of this discussion. But it was very, very, very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Up.